Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by trees, hills, and fresh air, there lived an old man named Mr. Lee. He was known by everyone in the village as Grandpa Lee. He had white hair, a warm smile, and eyes full of experience. Grandpa Lee was a farmer in his younger years, then became a small business owner. He worked hard all his life and was now retired. But more than anything, he was respected for his wisdom and calm voice. One afternoon, his son, Wei, came to visit him. Wei was a young man in his 30s. He lived in the city and had a good job at a company. But lately, life was not easy for him. He was tired, stressed, and unsure about his future. Things were changing fast. Sometimes he felt lost, like he didn't know what he was doing anymore. Wei sat down beside his father in the garden. Birds were singing, and the wind was soft. The tea was hot, and the sun was just beginning to go down. Grandpa Lee looked at his son and smiled. "You look worried, my son," he said gently. Wei nodded. "Yes, father, life is difficult. I work hard, but I don't feel happy. I don't know if I am doing the right thing. I feel like I am running but not going anywhere." Grandpa Lee put down his tea and looked at the sky. After a moment of silence, he said, "Then maybe it is time for me to tell you the most important lessons I have learned in life." Wei looked at his father with curiosity. "Really?" "Yes," said Grandpa Lee. "You are old enough now. These are not lessons from books. They are lessons from life, real life. I will tell you everything, one by one." And so began a conversation that lasted from that afternoon into the night, and again the next morning. It was not just a talk between father and son. It was a moment of truth, where an old man shared his heart, his memories, and his secrets to living well. This is the story of that conversation. A story full of lessons about hard work, discipline, love, time, failure, courage, and what truly matters in life. Let's begin with Grandpa Lee's first advice: always respect time. Grandpa Lee sat back in his chair and looked at the old wooden clock on the wall. "Time," he said softly, "is the most important gift in your life. And yet, so many people waste it." Wei raised his eyebrows. "But I'm always busy, father. I go to work early. I return late. I work even on weekends sometimes." Grandpa Lee nodded. "Yes, you are busy, but being busy is not the same as respecting time." Wei looked confused. "What do you mean?" The old man smiled. "Let me explain with a story. A story from Grandpa's youth. When I was your age," Grandpa Lee began, "I worked in the rice fields. Every day, I woke up at 5 a.m. I didn't have an alarm clock, just the crow of the rooster. I worked under the sun. I worked in the rain, but I always had a plan. I made a small calendar in my notebook. I planned my work by season. I used every hour with purpose." Wei listened carefully as his father continued. "One day, a friend of mine, let's call him Bo, told me, 'Why are you working so hard, Lee? You are young. Enjoy life. Come drink tea, rest, laugh with friends.' I like Bo, but I told him, there will be time for that. First, I build my future." Grandpa Lee looked serious. 10 years later, I had saved enough money to buy a small shop. Bo, my friend, was still sitting under the tree, telling stories and drinking tea. The power of small moments. "Time doesn't wait," Grandpa Lee said. "Every minute that passes never comes back. When you waste time today, you are stealing from your future." Wei nodded. "I think I understand." "Do you?" Grandpa Lee smiled. "Then answer me, what did you do with your free hour yesterday evening?" Wei was silent. He had watched random videos online. Nothing important. Grandpa Lee said gently, "We all need rest, but too much wasting time becomes a habit. Use your time to build your future, your mind, your health. Even small actions matter. Reading 10 pages a day, learning 5 new English words, saving 10 coins, walking 10 minutes, they all grow." How to respect time. "Here is what I learned, son," Grandpa Lee said. "Wake up early. You will have more quiet time to think. Make a list. Write your goals for the day, simple ones. Do first things first. Don't waste the morning. It's gold. Say no to time thieves, too much TV, gossip, or laziness. Keep a routine. Repetition brings discipline. Rest wisely. Relaxation is important, but not all day. Wei was writing in his notebook. These are great tips. Father, I want to try this. Grandpa Li nodded. Good. Remember this, rich people, poor people, wise people, lazy people, we all have 24 hours. The difference is how we use them. A simple wisdom. Once, Grandpa Li said, a teacher told me something I never forgot. Time is like a river. You cannot touch the same water twice, because the flow that has passed will never come again. Wei looked at the garden. The wind was moving the leaves. It was peaceful, yet full of life. So, Grandpa Li said, respect time, and time will respect you. Waste it, and you will pay the price later. The end of the first lesson. The sun was starting to go down. Wei closed his notebook and smiled. Thank you, Father, he said. I think I've never really thought about time like this. Grandpa Li smiled back. Most people don't, until it's too late. But you, my son, still have many years. Use them well. They sat together in silence, watching the sky turn orange. And then Grandpa Li said, now let me tell you the second lesson about hard work. The evening breeze grew cooler, but the sky was still golden. Birds were flying back to their nests, and the smell of fresh tea filled the garden. Grandpa Li poured another cup for Wei and said, now, let's talk about something people don't like to hear, hard work. Wei looked at his father and smiled. I work hard. Father, I work long hours. Grandpa Li nodded. Yes, I believe you, but I'm not just talking about working many hours. I'm talking about working with purpose, discipline, and passion. There is a difference. Wei listened carefully. The bamboo story. When I was a boy, Grandpa Li began, there was a man in our village who planted Chinese bamboo trees. For 5 years, he watered the soil, added fertilizer, and removed weeds, but the bamboo never came out of the ground. People laughed at him. They said he was wasting time. But one day, in the 6th year, the bamboo shot out of the ground and grew more than 20 meters in just 6 weeks. Wei's eyes opened wide. Really? Yes, said Grandpa Li. But here's the question, did the bamboo grow in 6 weeks or 6 years? Wei thought, 6 years? Exactly. Grandpa Li smiled. For 5 years, nothing could be seen, but under the soil, the roots were growing strong. Without that hidden growth, the bamboo could not stand tall later. The truth about hard work. Hard work is like that bamboo, Grandpa Li said. Sometimes, you will not see results right away. You will feel tired, lost, or even like giving up. But if you keep going, something beautiful will grow. Wei took a deep breath. Sometimes I feel like my work is pointless. I send emails, go to meetings, write reports, but at the end of the week, I feel empty. Then maybe, Grandpa Li said softly, you must ask yourself, are you working just to survive? Or are you working to grow? Wei didn't answer right away. Building your own house. Let me tell you one more story. Grandpa Li said, once, a company hired a man to build a house. The man worked fast but used cheap materials. He didn't care much. When he finished, the boss gave him the key and said, this is your house. It's a gift for your years of service. The man felt sad. He had built his own house badly. Wei smiled. I see the lesson. Yes, said Grandpa Li. Every day, you are building your own future. If you do your work with love, even the small things will have great meaning. Grandpa's tips on hard work. Grandpa Li held up 3 fingers. Here are my 3 golden rules for hard work. Show up, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't want to. Work smart, not just hard. Learn, improve, and find better ways to do things. Be patient. Real success takes time. Don't expect fast results. Work in silence. Let your results speak later. Hard work and character. Hard work builds more than money. Grandpa Lee continued. It builds your character. You become stronger, wiser, and more confident. Lazy people avoid work, but they also avoid growth. You can't become better without effort. Wei nodded slowly. I guess I need to change how I see my work. Grandpa Lee smiled. Good. Hard work is not punishment. It is a tool. Use it to build something beautiful. A quiet reflection. Night was falling. The stars appeared above the quiet village. Grandpa Lee looked at the sky and said, when I see these stars, I remember all the nights I stayed up late, working in the field, sewing, fixing tools. It was not easy, but now, I rest in peace because I know I gave my best. Wei looked at his father with deep respect. You worked so hard, father. I did, said Grandpa Lee, and now I pass that lesson to you. Respect time, work hard, your future depends on it. After a pause, he said, now, let me tell you about the next lesson, something many people ignore, the importance of honesty. The moon had risen over the trees, casting a soft silver light on the garden. Grandpa Lee and Wei were still sitting together, surrounded by silence, peace, and the smell of tea. After talking about hard work, Grandpa Lee looked at his son and said, now, let's talk about something that is not easy to practice, but very important, honesty. Wei sat up straighter. I try to be honest. Father, I don't lie. I pay my bills. I don't cheat. That's good, Grandpa Lee said with a nod. But honesty is more than not telling lies. It's about being true to yourself, to others, and to life. A lesson from a lost sale. When I had my small shop, Grandpa Lee began, a man came one day to buy some rice and vegetables. He gave me a large bill. I gave him his items and his change. But after he left, I realized I had given him too much change, 10 yuan more than I should have. Wei leaned forward, listening closely. I could have said nothing. After all, he was gone, and 10 yuan was not a big amount. But my heart was not at peace, so I closed the shop, walked to his house, and returned the extra money. Wei looked surprised. What did he say? He was shocked, said Grandpa Lee, but he smiled, shook my hand, and said he would always buy from my shop. From that day, he told all his friends, my business grew because people trusted me. Trust is gold. Honesty builds trust, and trust is more valuable than money. Grandpa Lee said, a dishonest man may get ahead for a short time, but in the end, people stop believing in him. Wei nodded. In the city, people lie all the time. At work, some say things just to impress the boss. Some take credit for others' work. It's hard to stay honest when everyone around you is not. Grandpa Lee took a sip of tea. I understand. But remember this, a lie gives fast success, but honesty builds strong roots. It may take time, but in the end, people will know your true character. Honesty with yourself. Being honest is not just about money or words, Grandpa Lee said. It's also about being honest with yourself. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. Don't hide your weaknesses. Don't lie to your heart. Wei looked thoughtful. Sometimes, I tell myself I'm happy when I'm not. I pretend I like my job even when it feels empty. Grandpa Lee nodded. That's why people feel lost. When you lie to yourself, you walk the wrong path. But if you are honest, even if it hurts, you will find the way to a better life. Grandpa's honesty rules. Grandpa Lee pointed to his heart. Here are 3 simple rules I followed all my life. Be honest in small things. If you're not honest in small things, you won't be in big things either. Don't promise what you can't give. Say only what you can do. Tell the truth, but with kindness. Honesty does not mean being rude. Speak truth with respect. Honesty builds peace. Honest people sleep better, Grandpa Lee said with a smile. They don't have to remember their lies. They don't live in fear. Their heart is clean, and their mind is calm. Wei sighed. I want that peace, Father. You can have it, said Grandpa Lee, but it starts with a decision. Even if others lie, cheat, or steal, you don't follow. Be the man who stands for truth. A night of wisdom. The stars were brighter now. The garden was silent. except for the gentle sound of crickets. Wei looked at the sky and said, "I never thought so much about honesty. I thought it was simple, just tell the truth, but now I see it's a way of life." Grandpa Li nodded. "Yes, it is. It's not always easy, but in the long run, it brings peace, success, and respect." He stood slowly and stretched. "Tomorrow morning, I will tell you about something even more powerful, the role of courage in life. It's the fire that moves everything." Wei smiled. "I can't wait." They walked back to the house. 2 generations, one story at a time. The next morning, the sun rose slowly behind the hills, painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors. Birds sang as Grandpa Li and Wei sat again in the small garden with warm tea between them. Grandpa Li looked fresh, his eyes full of energy. "Today," he said, "I want to talk to you about something very important, courage." Wei raised an eyebrow. "I understand time, hard work, and honesty, but courage? Isn't that just for soldiers or heroes?" Grandpa Li smiled. "That's what many people think, but courage is something we all need every single day." The farmer who dared. Grandpa Li leaned back in his chair and began to tell a story. "When I was 20 years old," he said, "I met a farmer named Sheng. Sheng lived in a small house, had a sick wife, and 3 children. One year, there was a big flood. The water destroyed many farms, including Sheng's land. People were afraid. They said, 'It's over. You can't grow anything this year.' Wei listened, curious. But Sheng didn't give up. Grandpa Li continued. He took a small loan and planted a new kind of rice that grew faster. Everyone laughed at him. They said, 'You're crazy. This will never work.' Wei smiled. And did it work? It did. Grandpa said proudly. His field gave more rice than anyone's. That year, he saved his family, all because he had the courage to try. What is courage? Courage, Grandpa Li said, is not the absence of fear. Courage means you feel fear, but you act anyway. Wei nodded. I see. I've been afraid to make changes in my life. Afraid of failure. Afraid of what people will say. That's normal, said Grandpa, but don't let fear decide your life. A man without courage stays in the same place forever. Courage is the key to growth. Examples of daily courage. Courage, Grandpa said, is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, but it's everywhere. He listed some examples. Speaking the truth when it's easier to stay silent. Trying something new, even when it's scary. Saying sorry when you're wrong. Standing alone when everyone else chooses the easy path. Asking for help when you feel lost. Wei nodded slowly. I never saw those as acts of courage before. Most people don't, Grandpa said, but brave hearts are built in these small choices. Grandpa's courage lessons. Let me share with you what I've learned about courage, Grandpa Li said. Start small. You don't have to make big changes overnight. Begin with one brave step. Accept fear. Fear is not the enemy. It is a sign that something important is happening. Trust your values. Let your honesty and hard work guide you, even when it's hard. Don't fear failure. Every failure is a teacher. The only real failure is not trying. Surround yourself with brave people. Courage is contagious. If you walk with lions, you will learn to roar. Wei's reflection. Wei looked down. You know, Father, I've always wanted to start my own business, but I was too afraid. Afraid of losing money. Afraid of being laughed at. Afraid of failing. Grandpa Li placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Then you must ask yourself, will you let fear decide your future, or will you take the first step? Wei nodded. I think I want to try. That's the beginning. Grandpa smiled. You don't need to see the whole path. Just take the first step. Courage will meet you there. The morning promise. As the morning sun became brighter, Wei stood and stretched. His mind was full of new thoughts. He felt stronger, clearer, more awake, not just in body, but in purpose. Thank you, Father, he said. You're giving me more than advice. You're giving me a new way of seeing life. Grandpa Li smiled. And tomorrow, we will talk about gratitude, because even the strongest man needs to remember where he comes from and who helped him get there. Wei nodded. I'll be ready. Examples of daily courage. Courage, Grandpa said, is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, but it's everywhere. He listed some examples. Speaking the truth when it's easier to stay silent. Trying something new, even when it's scary. Saying sorry when you're wrong. Standing alone when everyone else chooses the easy path. Asking for help when you feel lost. Wei nodded slowly. I never saw those as acts of courage before. Most people don't, Grandpa said, but brave hearts are built in these small choices. Grandpa's courage lessons. Let me share with you what I've learned about courage, Grandpa Lee said. Start small. You don't have to make big changes overnight. Begin with one brave step. Accept fear. Fear is not the enemy. It is a sign that something important is happening. Trust your values. Let your honesty and hard work guide you, even when it's hard. Don't fear failure. Every failure is a teacher. The only real failure is not trying. Surround yourself with brave people. Courage is contagious. If you walk with lions, you will learn to roar. Wei's reflection. Wei looked down. You know, Father, I've always wanted to start my own business, but I was too afraid. Afraid of losing money, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of failing. Grandpa Lee placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Then you must ask yourself, will you let fear decide your future, or will you take the first step? Wei nodded. I think I want to try. That's the beginning. Grandpa smiled. You don't need to see the whole path. Just take the first step. Courage will meet you there. The morning promise. As the morning sun became brighter, Wei stood and stretched. His mind was full of new thoughts. He felt stronger, clearer, more awake, not just in body, but in purpose. Thank you, Father, he said. You're giving me more than advice. You're giving me a new way of seeing life. Grandpa Lee smiled. And tomorrow, we will talk about gratitude, because even the strongest man needs to remember where he comes from and who helped him get there. Wei nodded. I'll be ready. The next day, the garden felt more peaceful than ever. The trees danced gently in the wind, and the sun warmed the earth without burning. Wei sat down with his father, already feeling excited. Their daily talks had started to change something inside him. Grandpa Lee smiled. You're here early today. Wei laughed. I didn't want to miss a word. Good, Grandpa said, pouring the tea. Because today's lesson is about something many people forget, gratitude. Wei raised his eyebrows. You mean saying thank you? Grandpa nodded. That's part of it, but true gratitude is more than words. It is a way of thinking, a way of living. Gratitude brings peace, strength, and even happiness. The empty bowl story. When I was young, Grandpa Lee began. I met an old monk. He lived alone in the mountains. One day, I visited him. He gave me a bowl of rice and some warm tea. Wei smiled. Simple food. Yes, said Grandpa, but before eating, the monk closed his eyes and said, Thank you for this meal. Thank you for the farmers, the rain, the sun, and the soil. Grandpa paused. At that time, I thought it was silly, but later, I understood. He wasn't just thanking the food. He was remembering that many hands and efforts brought that simple rice to his bowl. Gratitude changes everything. Gratitude changes the way you see life. Grandpa Lee said, if you look for what's missing, you will always be unhappy. But if you look at what you have, you begin to feel rich. Wei nodded. I complain a lot. About work, about traffic, about money. That's normal, Grandpa said kindly. But if you only focus on what's wrong, your heart becomes heavy. Gratitude lightens the heart. He pointed to the flowers in the garden. Even these flowers don't ask for much, just sunlight and water, yet they bloom. Why? Because they accept what they have. Gratitude is a choice. People think happiness comes when everything is perfect. Grandpa continued, but the truth is, happiness comes when you are grateful, even when life is not perfect. Wei looked thoughtful. How do I start? Every day, Grandpa said, before you sleep, ask yourself, what am I thankful for today? It can be something small, a kind word, a good meal, a friend who smiled at you. He added, write it down, one line a day. After 30 days, you will see how rich your life really is. Grandpa's gratitude rules. Wei leaned forward as Grandpa raised his hand. Here are my 4 rules for living with gratitude, he said. Say thank you often, even to those who don't expect it. Don't compare your life to others. There will always be someone richer, smarter, or more successful, but your path is yours. Help others when you can. Giving is one of the purest forms of gratitude. Remember where you came from. Never forget the people and places that helped you grow. Learning to appreciate. Wei looked away for a moment, then said, I think I forgot how much you and Mom did for me. The food, the clothes, the advice, even when I was ungrateful. Grandpa nodded gently. We all forget sometimes, but now that you remember, that's what matters. Gratitude doesn't live in the past. It lives in what you do now. Wei smiled. Thank you, Father, truly. You're welcome, son, Grandpa said. And tomorrow, I will share one final lesson, one that holds all the others together, the power of kindness. Without kindness, no success feels good. As the sun sets, the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a golden glow across the garden. Wei stood beside his father, both feeling the quiet joy of simple moments, the warmth of tea, the comfort of family, and the strength of shared words. Wei whispered, I think I'm starting to understand what makes life meaningful. Grandpa looked at him and said softly, gratitude opens your eyes, and tomorrow, kindness will open your heart. The morning breeze was calm and cool. Birds flew across the sky, and the trees whispered softly in the garden. Wei was already sitting outside when Grandpa Li came with 2 cups of warm tea. Wei had a peaceful smile on his face. He looked different, lighter, happier. Good morning, Father, Wei said. Good morning, my son, Grandpa replied. Today, we speak of one last lesson. It's simple, but powerful. It's a seed that grows in every strong man and woman, kindness. Wei nodded. I've been waiting for this one. A stranger in the cold. Grandpa Li sat and looked into the distance as he spoke. Years ago, I was traveling in the mountains during winter. It was freezing cold. I had lost my way. My hands were numb, and my feet were tired. He paused for a moment. I saw a small hut. A poor man lived there with his wife and child. He had very little, only some rice and warm water. But when he saw me, a stranger, he welcomed me inside. Wei's eyes widened. He gave me food, his wife warmed my hands, his child shared his blanket. They didn't ask who I was or what I could give them. They simply saw a man in need and helped. That night, their kindness saved my life. Kindness doesn't cost much. Kindness, Grandpa said, is not about money. You don't need to be rich to be kind. A smile, a helping hand, a kind word, these things are free, but they carry great power. Wei nodded. Sometimes I forget that. I get busy with work, with problems, and I forget to notice people around me. It happens to all of us, Grandpa said, but we must remind ourselves every day, we are all walking the same path, trying to survive, to grow, to find peace. When we help each other, we all rise together. Small acts, big impact. Grandpa continued, do you remember Mr. Zhong, the old man who lives near the market? Yes, said Wei. He walks with a cane, very quiet. One day, when you were a child, you gave him your umbrella when it started to rain. You don't remember that, but he does. Every time I meet him, he says, Wei is a good boy. He made my day better. Wei smiled in surprise. I had no idea. That's how kindness works, Grandpa said. A small action for you can mean the world to someone else. Kindness in a harsh world. The world is not always kind, Grandpa said. People are tired, angry, afraid, but you don't have to follow that path. He leaned in and looked into Wei's eyes. When someone is rude, answer with calm. When someone is cold, offer warmth. When someone is lost, offer a hand. Kindness is not weakness, it is strength in its most beautiful form. Wei nodded. It's easy to be kind when people are kind to you, but harder when they are not. That's true, Grandpa said, but that's when kindness matters most. Grandpa's kindness rules. Grandpa raised his hand, just like before. Here are my rules for kindness. Always listen before you speak. Everyone is fighting a battle you don't see. Give without expecting. The reward is in the giving, not in return. Be kind to yourself. You can't give love if you don't give it to yourself first. Teach kindness to others. Children learn it when they see it in us. A heart at peace. Wei took a deep breath. These talks, they've changed me. Father, I feel like I've grown in 1 week more than in the last 10 years. Grandpa smiled. That is the beauty of wisdom. It doesn't always come from books. Sometimes, it comes from stories, reflection, and quiet moments. He added, the real test comes now. Will you carry these lessons into your life? I will, Wei said firmly. With time, hard work, honesty, courage, gratitude, and kindness. A new beginning. The sun rose fully now, shining over the trees. The garden was full of light, as if it was blessing the conversation between father and son. We've come to the end of our lessons, Grandpa said gently. Wei stood and bowed slightly. But for me, this is the beginning. They hugged. A deep, strong hug, full of love, respect, and promise. The sun had reached the top of the sky. The garden was warm and peaceful. Birds sang in the trees, and the flowers danced in the soft wind. Wei sat alone, holding his cup of tea, thinking deeply. His father had gone inside to rest, but his words remained like footprints on Wei's heart. Over the last few days, Wei had received more than advice. He had received a gift that no money could buy, no school could teach, and no book could fully explain. His father had passed on the wisdom of life, learned not through easy times, but through years of struggle, mistakes, and quiet reflection. Wei thought about the 6 lessons. The value of time. He now saw time as life itself. Every minute was a chance to grow, to learn, and to build something meaningful. Hard work builds character. Nothing great comes easy, and it's not just about success, it's about becoming stronger through effort. Honesty builds trust in a world full of shortcuts and lies. Truth is rare, but truth brings peace, inside and outside. Courage brings change. Being afraid is normal, but true courage is choosing to act, even with fear. Gratitude brings joy. Instead of chasing more, Wei now wanted to appreciate what he already had: family, food, shelter, and love. Kindness builds legacy. A kind heart leaves a mark on the world. It turns ordinary people into heroes in someone's story. A father's greatest gift. Grandpa Li hadn't given Wei money, land, or gold. He had given him something much more valuable: direction, a way to live with meaning, strength, and peace. These lessons would guide Wei through difficult times, and one day, he would pass them on to his own children. Wei smiled. He felt lighter. He wasn't afraid of the future anymore. He didn't need to have all the answers. He just needed to walk the path, one honest, grateful, courageous, and kind step at a time. He looked at the door where his father had gone in. "Thank you, Father," he whispered, not just for the words, but for the love behind them. The final lesson: live it. Many people hear good advice, but few live by it. Wei now understood that the real lesson was this: a wise man does not only listen, he practices, he lives the words. And from that day forward, Wei did just that.